So with that, let's get to today's top story here across the NFL, and it centers on Matt Patricia, the current head coach of the Detroit Lions, and he's in some hot water right now. So Patricia met with reporters yesterday as part of a previously scheduled press conference. Great timing, by the way. So a story surfaced on Wednesday night in regard to an indictment from 1996 on a charge of aggravated sexual assault that occurred during spring break. Patricia began the press conference with a planned statement saying, quote, 22 years ago, I was falsely accused of something very, very serious. There were claims made about me that never happened. He went on to answer a total of 13 questions, one of them pertaining to whether he thought the issue would come up at all during interview processes throughout his career, and he said the following: it was never an issue in subsequent interviews. All right, and asked in terms of what happened that night on spring break, Patricia basically deflected and just said he was falsely accused. So when asked about specifics on this matter, Patricia didn't get into them. Didn't get into any of the granular stuff, none of the details. Basically just said, I've been falsely accused. This is not true. This is made up. And so it's interesting. He later on cemented that he is 100% the head coach of the Detroit Lions. I don't think that's really up to him, to be honest with you. I think it's up to general manager Bob Quinn, but I digress here. It's safe to say this was more of a blanket macro denial here. Like I said, with Patricia not offering any specifics on the matter, like, you know, saying that I never knew this girl, or we never interacted, or I wasn't even on spring break at the time. None of that stuff. Patricia just straight up said it's false. Now, it's unclear if the victim will tell her story to a court of public opinion. That remains to be seen, and if she doesn't, then perhaps this will all be forgotten about. But there is very real possibility that this won't be forgotten and that Matt Patricia will have to carry this on into OTAs, in training camp, in preseason, and of course the regular season for the Detroit Lions. It's not a good start if you're a new head coach in the National Football League, and Patricia has been in the NFL for quite some time, more specifically with the New England Patriots. Patricia has Patriots ties with GM Bob Quinn. We have a weigh-in. I want you guys chiming in here on the Cam Rogers Show. And should Matt Patricia step down as head coach? I want you to hit me up in the comments section here on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Let me know. Now, of course, in what we all learned in civics in high school, you are innocent until proven guilty, right? So we can presumptively give Patricia the benefit of the doubt here, but still, perhaps there is more information to still come out of all of this. But this was something that happened in 1996. I don't know what kind of evidence is still out there. But Matt Patricia, one of the new head coaches in the ranks in the NFL this year, off to a pretty bad PR start here. And you know what's interesting? The Patriots recently released a statement, and they didn't find anything on this when they went through their interview process with Patricia. So the Patriots had no idea. The Lions obviously had no idea. But the Detroit newspaper that released this story obviously had an idea about it. And whoever leaked it to them really is up for debate. But obviously not a great beginning here for Patricia as the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. Be sure to let me know what you think about his future there in the Motor City, particularly you Lions fans out there. What do you think of this? Are you in the Patricia camp here, or are you now stepping off and saying, wait a minute, maybe this guy isn't for us? And of course, here on the Cam Rogers Show, we appreciate when you weigh in. All right, let's get to some more happier news. How about this? ESPN officially naming Jason Witten as the lead analyst on Monday Night Football. This is no surprise. This has been reported on this program before, but it is now cemented that Witten will be in the broadcast booth with Joe Tessitore, who will be the play-by-play man there for Monday Night Football. Also been reported on this show, Booger McFarland will indeed be the field analyst for Monday Night Football as well. Lisa Salters, I believe the only remaining person from the broadcast crew, my producer Harris is saying yes, from a year ago on Monday Night Football. So big time changes here with Tessitore now as the play-by-play man, and Sean McDonough moving on to do college football yet again. Witten there as the lead analyst. Jon Gruden, of course, the new head coach of the Oakland Raiders. And then Lisa Salters there, sideline reporter. Booger McFarland as a field analyst, I'm actually excited to see. I've mentioned on this show before that ESPN has experimented, if you will, with field analysts before, with Louis Riddick during the Pro Bowl last year. So perhaps they were in preparation here for a field analyst for the Monday Night Football schedule. So this crew will actually call the Raiders versus Rams game in the later window on their Monday Night Football doubleheader. So usually the case is the main Monday Night Football crew calls that first game on the schedule, but it's the Jets and the Lions. So they put the main crew for the Raiders game with Jon Gruden as the head coach. I think that makes sense there. Still up for finding out in terms of who will be broadcasting that Jets-Lions game in that early window on Monday Night Football, but there you go. We do have a weigh-in for you guys as well. How do you think Jason Witten will perform as a broadcaster? He's a Hall of Famer, one of the great guys in the NFL. Tony Romo recently sang his praise for Romo. But how about the broadcast booth? Because sometimes jumping from player to broadcaster is a lot more difficult than people realize. So be sure to let me know in comments what you think about Jason Witten becoming an analyst there in the broadcast booth. And I'm excited to see what he can do. He's an intelligent guy, very smart. ESPN did its fair share of vetting here, going through tryouts with Brett Favre, which apparently didn't go very well, Kurt Warner, Matt Hasselbeck, Louis Riddick, a few other guys as well. So Witten got that big-time job. And, of course, Peyton Manning got offered like $10 million, and Peyton was like, no thanks. All right, let's get to the next headline here. Mark Ingram will indeed be suspended officially for the first 4 games of the NFL season. The NFL has denied his appeal here. So it's 4 games due to PED use. And I guess the good news for Saints fans and Saints players and Ingram himself is that he can still show up to workouts, OTAs, training camp, and compete in the preseason. Obviously cannot play in the first 4 games of the regular season. So with that, guess whose draft stock in fantasy football circles is skyrocketing right now? Alvin Kamara. All right, had a big-time breakout year at rookie last year. Now he's got an opportunity here to be a big-time factor in the Saints offense for those first 4 games, and of course going forward, but especially those first 4 games. And as you all begin to think about fantasy football, I know it's May, but it's never too early. Mock draft season is around the corner, and in fantasy football, it's all about opportunity. So with that is Alvin Kamara, a running back #1 in fantasy football. Hit me up in the reaction poll. Give me a heart for yes, a like for no. And I'll tell you one thing, the Saints are going to continue to run the rock. Why? Drew Brees is not getting any younger. You want to protect that franchise arm there so he is fresh for the playoffs and hopefully for Super Bowl 53 if you are a Saints fan. So it's going to be controlling the line of scrimmage, utilizing that duo with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. But Kamara here will be on his lonesome, in essence, for those first 4 games. So let me know in the reaction poll what you think about Kamara as an RB #1 in fantasy football. Ingram will be out the first 4 games there. All right, so there's actually been a few notable suspensions so far, some maybe more notable than others. Ingram is a part of that list there. We've got some other players as well that I want to flash here real quick. So there's Ingram, there's Vontaze Burfict, which is like death, taxes, and Vontaze Burfict getting suspended. Thomas Davis was kind of a sad situation. He released a very emotional video on Twitter saying that he had no idea he was, in the wrong or anything like that. Corey Liuget, Vidal Alexander, and kind of a fun footnote, Mark Sanchez, who is currently a free agent, is suspended for the first 4 games of the NFL season, and he may be unemployed by the time the regular season comes around. All right, I mentioned Peyton Manning earlier about perhaps becoming a broadcaster. How about being a part of the ownership group with the Carolina Panthers? So billionaire Ben Navarro has reached out to Peyton Manning to gauge his interest in being a part of the Carolina Panthers ownership group. And Manning is reportedly considering the offer here, which is interesting, although he did tell Peter King last year, quote, "It wasn't the right place for me right now in terms of an ownership role." Well, of course, it's no longer right now. It's 1 year later, and Manning has obviously received a lot of lucrative offers across the sport, talking about networks that have reportedly been willing to pay Manning around $10 million to be an analyst for their broadcasts. And as of now, there was no front runner to purchase the Panthers. Of course, Jerry Richardson has been shopping it since the allegations of creating a culture of sexual harassment. So, yeah, there's going to be some turnover there at the ownership portion of the Carolina Panthers, and perhaps Peyton Manning could be a part of that. Stay tuned. And this is, of course, a developing story. We'll be keeping you updated here on the Cam Rogers Show in regards to Peyton. All right, let's get to Dez Bryant here. You guys always love the Dez Bryant updates. Here's what I have for you. Jerry Jones still believes in him, despite breaking ties. So that makes sense. Jerry Jones said that Dez can still make a big-time contribution here. And I guess this is a nice little consolation prize for Dez Bryant, considering there's a report out there that most teams won't even offer Dez the minimum to bring him on. So that, according to Adam Schefter. So the logic was that Dez would see his market pick up steam after the NFL draft, and perhaps these 5 teams here that I have for you will look into him. My top 5 new landing spots for Dez Bryant. New England at 1, I got Seattle at 2, 49ers at 3, Colts at 4, and the Houston Texans there at number 5. Let me give you my reasoning for every single one here. So the Patriots, they got about $14 million in salary cap space. Lost Brandon Cooks and Danny Amendola. I know they have Julian Edelman and Malcolm Mitchell, but Dez won't be expensive. And it just seems like a Patriots move, right? Bring in a veteran receiver. Remember the Brandon Lloyd days, the Chad Ochocinco days, and all of this stuff? Randy Moss as well towards the twilight of his career. Maybe New England brings in Dez Bryant, puts him into the slot, and they find a way to make him effective there. Plus, there's a chance for Dez to get a ring. So, I mean, that's a positive. Seattle, it's more about a need. I mentioned in a few episodes ago about Brandon Marshall and how he's on the open market. And Marshall, of course, is in the process of visiting with the Seattle Seahawks, according to reports out there. So Seattle's in the market for wide receivers. Why not get Dez Bryant? I think Dez Bryant is a better wide receiver than Brandon Marshall. Now, we are comparing washed-up receivers to washed-up receivers here, but Seattle has Doug Baldwin and then Marcus Johnson and Tyler Lockett, who was supposed to be a breakout guy but just hasn't been of late. Then you got Tanner McEvoy, who's just straight up bad. So huge need for Seattle. I think maybe they take a look at Dez Bryant, although they are in the process of looking at Brandon Marshall. San Francisco, salary cap space, and that's really it, all I have for my reasoning on that. Maybe there's a chance that John Lynch gives Dez a call. I just don't see where San Francisco fits him into this offense. I think they like their wide receivers right now, got a couple of good ones throughout offseason time and the draft as well. Of course, they got Dante Pettis there out of Washington, and of course, there's still Marcus Goodwin and Trent Taylor, who I think could be a Pro Bowler very soon. But with that, I do want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Is Dez Bryant still a wide receiver number 1? I'm going to assume you all will say no. I have the Colts at 4. A lot of salary cap space there for the Colts. Big-time need as well. They weren't big sponsors, or not big spenders, I should say, in the offseason time. I thought maybe they'd get Andrew Norwell or something like that. They didn't. So they got a lot of cap space here to play with. And after T.Y. Hilton, there's a big drop-off. They lost Dante Moncrief to the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? And yeah, they bring in Ryan Grant, but he failed the physical at the Baltimore Ravens, might I add. So you're going to rely on that guy to be your wide receiver number 2? I'm not. So maybe the Indianapolis Colts take a look at Dez Bryant there. And then the Houston Texans. So DeAndre Hopkins a few weeks ago posted a picture of Dez in a Houston Texans jersey. Looks pretty good in it with the 88 there in the blue, red, and white. And I'll tell you what, Dez doesn't have to move very far, right? Going from Dallas to Houston. won't have to go to like Seattle or New England or anything like that. And I think Houston's building a good team. They'll be a force in the AFC South next year. Got to shore up that offensive line a little bit. But Deshaun Watson is an exciting player. And DeAndre Hopkins, as I mentioned, Will Fuller, a good spark plug down the field there. So Patriots, Seahawks, 49ers, Colts, Texans. I've seen the Jets. I've seen the Giants. The Giants aren't going to bring him in, guys. Giants are not going to happen. Redskins, not going to happen either. Maybe they have a salary cap space, but I don't see him fitting in that offense there. So there you go. That's the deal with Dez Bryant. All right, speaking of wide receivers here, and the Giants, might I add, Victor Cruz wants to return to Big Blue. And we are talking about a guy who could not make the roster with the Chicago Bears that was absolutely inept in the aerial attack in 2017, and Cruz was not featured on that team. We're talking about Josh Bellamy and Kevin White and Kendall Wright. All these guys were presumed better than Victor Cruz on the Chicago Bears. So, nonetheless, Victor Cruz told TMZ Sports he'd want to rejoin the Giants. As you see on your screen, the Bears signed him to a one-year deal last season, but he didn't even make it to the regular season with Chicago. So he's obviously not ruling out any team in terms of this comeback, but he was kind of forced to give an answer in terms of his preference. He says the New York Giants. It makes sense to me. He wants to go back to a team that he had a couple of good years with, but it was kind of a sour end between Giants leadership and Victor Cruz. Now, of course, there's a new GM in town and Dave Gettleman, right? And a new head coach and Pat Shurmur, so maybe things are all but forgotten here. So Victor Cruz still hoping to get back into the NFL. Don't worry, I'm not doing my top 5 teams for Victor Cruz. It's not going to be like Kurt Warner, Dallas Cowboys, top team there, Denver Broncos, etc. for Kurt Warner. Anyway, let's go to the next headline here, and talking about a receiver actually on the Giants. Co-owner John Mara said, quote, "It's not the first contract negotiation we've ever had." So he's pretty confident that he'll get a deal done with OBJ here. And I've talked about OBJ many times on this program. You know, been surfaced that maybe the Giants would trade him. OBJ wants $20 million for a yearly salary, which is insane. Beckham is set to make $8.5 million in his final year of this rookie contract here. Without an extension, he will become an unrestricted free agent next spring. So, like I said, he's been subject of trade rumors. He's not going anywhere, though, yet. Maybe in 2019 he's going somewhere, but I don't think he's going anywhere in 2018. Now, I don't know if the Giants figure this out, but they better. Because if they don't get some sort of extension here before the regular season, I don't think OBJ comes back. And this is kind of synonymous with the Le'Veon Bell situation and how the Pittsburgh Steelers are literally botching that situation as well. How they have not created some sort of continuity here, chemistry with Le'Veon Bell and his agent in terms of figuring out a long-term deal. As of now, Bell is on a franchise tag. So a much better situation than Odell. Odell's on a rookie contract. He's making less than Le'Veon Bell for the 2018 season. For Beckham, is he worth $20 million a year? I don't know about that. Is he worth more than 8.5? Absolutely. I mean, Dez Bryant was in that range for his salary for 2018 with the Cowboys if he were to remain on that squad. Obviously not. But I'll tell you one thing. If there is no extension here, Odell is going to play 2018 all PO'd, and Dave Gettleman is trying to save himself here from making a big-time mistake of letting a generational wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr. go, and I don't know if he'll be able to do that. Odell may want to go to another team where he actually feels like he is respected, right? Where he wants to, be paid and feel like he can actually get a ring, by the way, because it could be all over for Eli Manning after 2018 too, right? So we'll see. John Mara's confident, though. Stay tuned on Odell. Let me know in the comments section, will Odell be on the Giants in 2019? Like I said, I'm confident he'll be on the squad for 2018, extension or no extension. Be sure to hit me up here on the Cam Rogers Show because we do appreciate when you weigh in. All right, we got a new development here in the Colin Kaepernick collusion case against the National Football League. So, full stop. Kaepernick is alleging all 32 NFL owners are colluding against him to keep him out of the NFL. The newest development is Kaepernick has deposed Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll, as well as the general manager John Schneider. What does that mean? A deposition is essentially a questioning under oath, not in a court setting. So what Kaepernick has done is, or his attorney presumably, questioned Carroll and Schneider in terms of, well, why didn't you bring me in for a workout? Because remember, it was originally planned that the Seattle Seahawks were going to bring in Kaepernick and work him out on a Monday a few weeks ago, and perhaps bring him in as the backup quarterback because Seattle had that big-time mistake or bad PR run-through with their former backup quarterback. And so Kaepernick apparently was questioned about, well, what is your plan for kneeling? And reportedly, Colin Kaepernick did not give a straightforward answer. And now there's been some muddy reporting about this. Rappaport reported one thing, Adam Schefter reported another thing. And so Kaepernick essentially deposed Pete Carroll and Schneider and asked them straightforward, why didn't you bring me in? Why didn't you sign me? Why didn't you work me out? Because we had planned on doing so. So Schneider and Carroll join Jerry Jones, Roger Goodell, Bob McNair, John Harbaugh, Ozzie Newsome as all of these figures, major figures in the NFL, that have been deposed by the Colin Kaepernick camp throughout this ongoing collusion case. Now, a little footnote here, Kaepernick was actually recently spotted working out with Eric Reid at California State University East Bay. So perhaps a comeback will arise at some point for Kaepernick, and whether it's with Seattle or not, who knows. Now, Pete Carroll has actually said before, publicly, he's not ruling out signing Colin Kaepernick. But as of now, we are not headed in a direction that perhaps shows that the Seattle Seahawks will sign Colin Kaepernick. I will have so much more on this at the end of the show because I'm going to take a more macro perspective with the final word at the end of the program here in terms of Kaepernick, Eric Reid, the national anthem debate, and so much more because it's going to be a big topic of discussion throughout the offseason here as we go through OTAs and training camp and into the regular season. It's going to be very interesting to see how many players will decide to kneel during the NFL. And oh, by the way, we got NFL owners meetings coming up later this month as well, where they will talk about the legislation perhaps where players could be required to stand. Stay tuned on that. I'll have more on the Cam Rogers Show regarding that. All right, folks, big-time quarterback from the 2018 NFL Draft has signed his rookie deal. Josh Rosen, 4-year rookie contract worth $17.84 million, an $11 million signing bonus as well. Rosen was in the team facilities for one day and signed it. And apparently that has never happened in Cardinals history, according to their owner there. So there you go. The former UCLA quarterback's contract includes a 5th-year option for 2022 because he is a first-round pick. I'll tell you what, Josh Rosen has the potential to be a successful quarterback in the opportunity that he has because you've got Sam Bradford, you've got Mike Glennon ahead of him right now, and that can be the stopgaps for Rosen as he learns this offense here with OC Mike McCoy. New head coach in Steve Wilks, so it's a fresh start for both of them, which I think is a good thing, actually. I think it's good that a new head coach is learning as well as a new quarterback. All right, so Rosen officially signing with the Cardinals. Daron Payne, by the way, signed with the Redskins. Quentin Nelson signed with the Colts. So some of these signings are starting to trickle in here, and all of them are pretty much a given. But I did want to point out Josh Rosen there going to the the Cardinals for that 4-year deal. All right, folks, one final headline, and this is just unbelievable stuff. I am going to show you a 6'7", 370-pound, 8th grade recruit. He's still growing and is bigger than some NFL offensive linemen. His name is Keontae Goodwin. He is absolutely massive, and he already has verbal football scholarship offers from Georgia, from Louisville, from Kentucky, from Western Kentucky. He has size 18 shoes. If you look at some of the pictures online, it's like him and then a bunch of little kids around him. Absolutely unbelievable size. And I'll tell you what, he will be a force in the college ranks. And I can't believe I'm saying this. and he's in 8th grade. Unbelievable stuff there. So keep an eye on Keontae Goodwin. 6'7", 370 pounds. Unbelievable.